Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Bonfield Township Virtual Council meeting for Tuesday, March the 8th. I trust all our broadcasting systems are in order for our millions of viewers at home to tune in to our broadcast this evening. And I would take
everything is good.
A mover and a seconder to open the meeting, please. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Corbett. This meeting be opened at 7:01 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Our last meeting was February 22nd, and there's minutes in our package of that meeting. Unless there's issues with those minutes, I would take a mover and a seconder to accept those. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinepour, that the minutes of the regular meeting held February 22nd, 2022 be adopted as circulated. All in favor? Carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Yes, Councillor Corbett.
Thanks, Your Worship. Item 8.8, I declare conflict as my wife is an employee of Castellan.
Okay. Any others? Hearing none. Presentations and delegations. 4.1, Robin Edwards and Amy Cullimore will be joining us virtually. Welcome and good evening. You're muted at the moment.
Sorry about that.
No problem. The floor is yours.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, we've allowed that in the past.
How do I do that? Can you see it?
Yes.
Right. 1 second. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for your invitation. Are you okay if I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for your invitation to allow us to speak here again. We wanted to remind you of our story. We have been looking for a cottage for and had not found one or had the resources to meet our needs. In late 2000, Robin lost her father to cancer, and we sought to provide our family with a legacy in his name. Robin's father's favorite place was in Sanibel Moorings in Florida. And in March of 2021, we found the cottage we'd been looking for. We entered into a bidding war, and yes, we paid far too much for our cottage. We called our cottage Silent Moorings in honor of Robin's father. And we knew when we bought our cottage that we would have to rent. So prior to purchasing, we had sound local legal advice to ensure that we were in our legal right to rent. Otherwise, we never would have bought our cottage. We had verbal confirmation from your city planner, Mr. LaPlante, and the bylaw officer that we were in our legal right to rent. Mr. Mayor, we presented to Council in July of 2021, a mere 6 weeks after taking possession of our cottage. We would like to acknowledge that the presentation that we made was extremely stressful, intimidating, and made us vulnerable and unsafe. We were reluctant speakers at that meeting, and we remain reluctant. We are here today as other citizens in the community we approach to speak. We're fearful of reprisal. We too fear ongoing reprisal. However, our position on this matter is well known. And unfortunately, we reside between two of the largest proponents against short-term renters. Mr. Mayor, after that meeting, we wrote to you on numerous occasions, in fact, as lately as February 17th, asking for you to address the extremely disrespectful and demeaning behavior of those that attended the meeting. We asked you to address the current Bonfield you for your lack of leadership at the meeting and your refusal to intervene when common procedural etiquette would have expected you to. You directed us to stop renting our cottage to appease our neighbors. This was unacceptable, inappropriate, and appalling to us. It suggested bias on your part when expectations would rule you to be neutral. You emailed us on August 8th saying that you would address our issues within the week. We never heard from you. Since July, secondary to the conduct of the last council meeting, we are being characterized as criminals. We feel fearful for what could happen at our cottage should we not be there. We feel fearful for our family, our friends, and our renters who might be and have been accosted on the road and interrogated by our neighbors, demanding to know who they are. In his presentation at the last council meeting, Dr. Preston mentioned that he allowed us to dig a trench on his property so as to allow us to use his internet tower. And yes, we did. And yes, we were extremely grateful. We laboriously worked hard to go and dig that trench with our 7 children, ages 5 to 24. All of them helped dig a trench of 440 meters. What Dr. Preston did not say to you was that he called us 2 weeks later when he realized that we were going to rent, giving us an ultimatum as to either stop renting our cottage or he would withdraw our internet privileges to his tower. This after we'd signed a 2-year contract with an internet provider and spent hundreds of dollars to safely connect to his tower. I ask you, when does the good neighbor of Bonfield Association, headed by Dr. Preston, feel this is acting as a good neighbor? Does that mean that those of us who are tax-paying citizens of Bonfield, short-term rental property owners are bad neighbors? We are following the instructions and advice from your city planner and your bylaws. Just as an example of how we've been unfairly targeted, happened just a few weeks ago when the Humane Society arrived at my door saying that someone had complained about our dogs roaming and being aggressive on the road. The Humane Society officer stated that there were dog prints on the road, suggesting that that was evidence that the dogs were there. And of course I said they were because I just finished walking them. He told me this as they lie licking his feet. We have 2 other dogs in our neighborhood who roam the neighborhood and come and visit us and our dogs, and we love them. But as a first step, would you not think that good neighbors would not call the Humane Society, but either pick up the phone or come and visit us to say that they have an issue? These silly dogs are not aggressive. Look at them. It's just yet another example of how the lack of action on yourself, Mr. Mayor, has left us vulnerable and fearful. We are simple people attempting to bring some peace and grounding for our family. We rent to very select families. Last summer, a burned out family doctor, a group of mature friends who loved to cook and hadn't seen each other in 3 years, a family who loved to fish, and a professor and his partner with their 2-year-old. All screened well. They did not cause a nightmare summer that Dr. Preston suggests. For every inquiry, we turn away 10. Based on strict criteria, one of which, do they have the resilience to deal with their neighbors from each side? We have never had a call from Dr. Preston or other neighbors complaining about anyone in our cottage or their conduct. They have all our contact numbers and emails, but we've never had a call. We can only assume there have been no problems with our renters. Dr. Preston has an impressive estate. He has every type of toy, including ATVs, tractors. They have a full-size crokinole game next to our cottage on the ice. Their lights glare into the sky for all to see on the lake. And this is his right. He has a right to what he does on his property, just as we do. We do not question our neighbors about who is on their property, who is staying or not staying. We have not complained about their traffic, their parties, or their noise. We only ask that we are given the same respect and rights, the same rights that all citizens of Bonfield are entitled to. Mr. Mayor and Council, we are law-abiding citizens and we have found ourselves here reluctantly. It would be in our best interest to come here and advocate for short-term rentals. We are not here to do that. We are new to the community. We do not want to be the voice of the community. We are one voice in the community. The good neighbors of Bonfield are demanding that you consider only what is best for them. We ask that a thorough examination of the opinions of the entire community of Bonfield be conducted regarding the issue of short-term rentals, and that it is carried out in a transparent, honest way with integrity. That the voice of a few privileged citizens do not direct, demand, and give ultimatums to yourselves and the citizens of Bonfield. In that vein, we started a petition just on Sunday asking citizens of Bonfield to ask for this to happen within our community. Within 24 hours, over 100 people had signed. So we ask you, please, address our issues and give every citizen in Bonfield a voice. Thank you. Robin, do you have anything to add?
No.
Does anyone have any questions?
I'm not able to see a number of the councillors, so if you could vocalize if your hand is up at the moment, that would be good.
May I suggest
Okay.
that she stop sharing? Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I'm not very technically adept.
Okay, there doesn't appear to be any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to minutes and reports of municipal committees and boards. Planning advisor. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
Mayor McLaren, I do have a couple of, not questions, but regarding the last presentation. And we've heard from both sides. I wasn't here at the last meeting, but we've heard from both sides. I would like to know if it would be possible to have staff look into different options, such as Sudbury, Barrie, Brockville. They have a 4% that they when they contact Airbnb, and there's another one. I can't remember the name, but Verbal. And the 4% goes to the municipality. There's other options that we could do, as so many per room, per cottage. Also, I would recommend that our staff look into possibilities of to kind of help both sides of this issue. And I've heard it from the community on both sides. I've heard against and I've heard for. I am not against Airbnbs. I personally do respect owners of businesses that do pay commercial taxes and insurance. But I would recommend that our staff look into it, please.
Okay, there was no comment. Unfortunately, you were away for the presentation last meeting. There was no comment or question made of council at that point in time, nor direction given to staff. And the same this evening, there was no question or comment made. But yes, certainly it is the expectation that our staff are certainly looking into this, because there is as was alluded to in this presentation, there's some community outreach being done, both pro and con related to the subject. So CIO Walker and I have briefly talked about it, but yes, we will have further work to do in that regard before council entertains, I think, a position one way or the other.
Thank you. And if staff has any questions about any of my notes, let me know, and I'd be glad to talk to you about them.
Okay, thank you. Moving then to minutes and reports of committees and boards. Planning advisor. Yes, Councillor Vinecourt.
I just on Councillor Lagasse's comments. I think we should look also closer to East Ferris and Callender and see what everybody else is doing in around our area, if that's possible also. Because I think it would reflect also what, around our area and our township compared to Ashtabel or East Ferris or if staff is willing to do that also.
Yeah, no, I think it has to be, there's a lot of research to be done on it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Okay,
Through your worship, if I can just comment.
yes, please.
I have been already investigating, pulling in reports, looking at what other municipalities are doing. I have been also paying attention to how the community at large in Bonfield Township has been expressing their support in either direction. And there are more than just opposing sides here. There really is a number of various different opinions being expressed. I also have been looking at what our neighbors in our district and with municipalities of our size and our structure with a community profile similar to ours. I'm glad to bring a report forward to council at an upcoming council meeting in the very near future.
Okay, thank you. One more time, I'm going to move to reports of committees and boards. Planning advisor.
We have not had a meeting since, I think, January. We are waiting for our new planning advisor at this point, but we do have applications that are waiting to be processed. So I'm waiting for direction from the CAO.
Okay. I had a conversation with parties that intended to apply for severance too, and my advice to them was file the application. That puts the onus on us to deliver the service. Our retired director of planning had previously offered to assist if we found ourselves in a position where we had no staff capable of delivering the service. We may well have to call them upon that because we weren't expecting the former new person, Hussan Rouhani, left rather abruptly after a year of training in that regard. So the position is currently vacant. The CAO is entertaining applications. The posting is out there, and he's been interviewing people. But in the interim, because of the timelines under the Planning Act, should we find ourselves in a situation where we need assistance, I'm certain we can call upon outside resources for that. So that shouldn't impede our ability to function in the near term. All right, fire department.
We haven't had a meeting since one in December. We should planning on having one soon, as soon as we can get something together with Councillor Corbett and see if we can get a time and with the chief and fire chief. So I would imagine probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks be possible.
All right, well, I have your recreation and fitness.
We're gonna have one. We were supposed to have one yesterday, but it was moved to next Monday. So we got a couple scheduled conflicts, so it'll be next week.
Okay. I guess the other
That's it.
bit of good news for all the council and the public at large that's watching is the municipality's been in the receipt of between FedNor and the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund, each of them $500,000 with our 10% contribution in both cases. So we have $1 million sitting there for furtherance of the waterfront master plan and other things. In the media, I alluded to the splash pad and improvements to the docking on Lake Nosbonsing and Centennial Park and all that, but there's more to it, certainly with that amount of funds readily available. So certainly this summer, you'll see a great deal of park improvements occurring. Library.
Yeah, all good news.
Yeah. Library postponed due to roof leakage. Yes, that is unfortunate that I know so many people have told me, and myself included, had some water coming in where it shouldn't have been, different places, and our library was one of them. So they're temporarily closed, I think, as I understand it, until that's resolved. The Wi-Fi and services from doors is still available, but the actual entering the library itself, last I heard, is paused at the moment. General government has not had a meeting, nor has police services. There was some discussion, email discussion, I'll call it, between the CAO and myself related to the fact that our police services board, while it's under rebirth under the new ministry structure of detachment-based police services boards, our own in-house Bonfield Township Police Service Board is going to have to function in the interim until that larger detachment board is formally established. And as such, there is memberships that need to be paid and other such things related to our commitments to the Ontario Association and the Northern Zone Association. Our membership of the Police Service Board is myself and Mary Paquette. We had a provincial appointee who had been on there, but that position has expired. So it's a two-member board, and I will be reaching out to her to convene a good time to have a meeting. And of course, our staff resource there is limited too at the same time, because it was the now retired director of planning who was the secretary. But we will come to some form of assistance there to hold a meeting probably within the next month and get our affairs up to date related to police services. Emergency management has not met for a week or two. We will be meeting, I believe it's the 22nd, tentatively I scheduled for that. I didn't look up the date on my calendar there. But as you know, there's so much at play in the world. COVID conversation has taken a big back seat on the news. But thankfully for everybody, provincial numbers are significantly declining. And the restrictions and mandates and so forth are all being lessened across the country and especially in Ontario. So things are on once again, a positive trend in that regard. Public Works. Certainly a challenging weekend for the Public Works Department with water, and I had occasion today to travel through Chisholm Township and Powassan and Sunridge, and we're not alone in that there's water over the roads in every municipality. And then to cover it up with 8 inches of snow on top was just a bonus icing on the cake. But maybe Manager Carr, you could, if you so desire, elaborate a bit more.
Firstly, I'd like to wish Jane and Andre and our millions of women listeners at home happy International Women's Day. It's such a privilege to be here as a woman, honestly, in my position. And Jane within the municipal government is also a strong go girl thing. Yeah, the last 3 days have been nuts. Freezing rain. As of yesterday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're up to 42 frozen culverts. I was out with them until about 8:30 last night in the holes, and our steamer was not working properly. So I had to take a breather, call in the service guy, get it serviced for 2 hours, and then we're back at it. Actually, I still have a crew out steaming right now. Then the snow. Actually, the snow was kind of a blessing in our world because it covered up the ice. So it all works out in the end. I've been tasked as project manager for the waterfront plan. I didn't want to interrupt during Parks and Recreation or give away any secrets. I know that Andre has a lot planned for Parks and Recreation to tell you there. I just wanted to inform council that we do have to spend $160,000 of the grant by the end of the month. We've been working with the splash pad designer last week. It's a sole sourced item, and they also provide the exercise equipment, the playground equipment that we're looking for in this project. So hopefully early next week, mid next week, we'll have 3D designs to show the council and Parks and Recreation, to show them the vision of the 3 projects that we're focusing on just quickly so we can get that money spent. Working with the North Bay Mattawa Conservation as well with the waterfront plan, so we can get our permitting in order, so we can progress through the waterfront plan design. And I think that's it for today. I have a very tired crew, and we're still going at it, and I appreciate what they've done for us as a municipality over the last 3 days.
Through your worship, if I can just ask Anne to maybe indicate something that she had told me about. There is a potential for recognition for the waterfront park. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, because we had to sole source the waterfront splash pad, the playground equipment and the exercise equipment that's incorporated in the first 3 designated importance projects. So this, they're called Park and Play Design, the supplier. And if we go with their ideas, we're meeting benchmarks that allows us to be a nationally recognized park within their park and play systems. So people will be able to go into the park and there'll be QR codes. And they'll be able to pull up those QR codes and rate their experience with their equipment. And for us sort of allowing them to do that, they also provide us with extra parts of the park that would be for free, actually.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on that at all? All right, report, there's no motions from any of the committees, I don't believe, tonight. So moving to non-municipal committees and boards, Phenom. You'll see the registration for their conference is now open. Conservation Authority.
I was not able to attend the last meeting, but I am part of the 50th anniversary ad hoc committee, and we've been meeting, I'd say once a month, roughly, and just wanted to advise everyone that there will be some events coming up, and I'll ask to post it on our website.
Okay. Obviously, the Conservation Authority was at their best on the weekend too, issuing flood warnings and other preemptive advice related to municipalities and citizens regarding the weather that was happening. And certainly I'm confident that they're out monitoring things now, because in these circumstances, I was just looking also at the snowmobile trails today and wondering what their status is, because they look great with the amount of snowfall that we had, other than I'm sure all the water courses are flooded. So it's unfortunate for northern tourism that that's happened, what occurred on the weekend.
I just wanted
Castleholm, yes.
Sorry.
No, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mayor McLaren, but I just wanted to add that there was a webinar on algae, blue-green algae, and they had an information session last week, and that people could attend. So I was hoping that some people did take advantage of that one.
Okay. And Castleholm, good news there. Further in our agenda tonight is the financing agreement related to Infrastructure Ontario borrowing. That's the most cost-effective way for all the member municipalities to fund that reconstruction. But the good news this week is the invitation was issued for what they're calling a snow turning or a sod turning event this Friday at 10 o'clock. And I was asked to attend, first of all, and second of all, to speak to the matter. So I'm looking forward with pride and pleasure of doing that on Friday at 10. There's no notice of motion that I'm aware of. So we're moving into bylaws. 8.1, first, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-9, to enter into an agreement with Calvin Township for wildlife compensation investigator services. I take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Foisey. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw, being a bylaw, to enter into an agreement with the Corporation of the Municipality of Calvin for wildlife compensation investigator services, be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-9, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Legassi.
Thank you. Is this a result of because our bylaw, wildlife compensation investigator has retired? Is that what was one of the jobs under his umbrella of Doug?
I'll briefly answer, and then I see the deputy clerk is willing to reply to it. We have been under the services of Calvin Township now for 2 years or longer, perhaps, because the former investigator that we had moved away, and our backup investigator was the now retired director of planning. But we've had this agreement in place for some time. But Andre, go ahead if you like to elaborate on that.
I remember.
You explained it quite clearly. It's just a reoccurring bylaw that we pass every year since our former wildlife investigator moved away. So you are correct on that.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor? Carried. The next one is in line to appoint the actual persons, same subject matter, bylaw 2022-10. I'd take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Vinecourt, seconded by Councillor Corbett. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to appoint wildlife compensation investigators for the corporation of the Township of Bondfield be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-10, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried. 8.3, first, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-12, use of corporate resources during an election. There's an elaborate policy there related to the fact that anybody, including members of council, running an election this fall for the municipal election cannot use corporate resources or corporate facilities for to gain advantage. Take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Corbett, seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to adopt a use of corporate resources for election purposes policy be read a first and second time, first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-12, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Legassi.
I just noticed the sequence of the bylaws, bylaw 2022, 09, 10, and this one's 12. What happened to 11 and what is 11?
You will see number 11 at the end of the meeting for the confirmatory bylaw.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? All in favor? Carried. 8.4, first, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-13, bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with the Bondfield Pharmacy. The pharmacy ownership is changing hands in that the pharmacist who's been practicing there for a period of time now is taking over the business from the previous owner. But maybe CAO Walker, you were in the discussions related to that. If you wanted to elaborate, you could do so or not.
Through your worship, you have it dead on. The pharmacist has agreed to take over the pharmacy, and he has incorporated a new business in that regard. And rather, because the original agreement with the previous pharmacy owner was adopted by bylaw, we're looking to repeal that bylaw, and seeing as that term of the lease of 5 years, original term of lease of 5 years, is up this year, it made sense to start a new lease with the new pharmacy owner, who's also been the pharmacist there for a number of years, and to start fresh with a new lease.
Okay, the repealing of the former bylaw, I thought when I read it that it's captured in the language of the new bylaw. Is that correct? Or am I recalling that wrong? Anyway, stay on track here. We'll pass this bylaw. We'll worry about repealing the old bylaw if it's failed to do so under this one. So I take a mover and a seconder for this, please. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Corbett. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with Bondfield Pharmacy and to repeal bylaw 2017-45 be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-13, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions? I've answered my own question in the repealing of the bylaw is happening within this one as well. We normally don't do it that way, but this should work. Any questions? Yes, Clerk Gagne.
I'm sorry, my phone was talking and I missed who moved and seconded the
Oh,
motion.
Councillor Foisey moved and Councillor Corbett seconded.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing there's no questions, all in favor? Carried. (8.5) First, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-14, to adopt a municipal election accessibility plan policy. Every election needs to be accessible for any accommodations that are required, and we do our best using the facilities that we have to make ourselves as accessible as possible. I would take a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Vinecourt, seconded by Councillor Legassi. That a bylaw to adopt a municipal election accessibility plan policy be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-14, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Legassi.
I was just wondering, with all the new staff, there is a training for accessibility. I know I took it with my work, and so does everyone else that starts up as new staff. I was wondering if there is a training for you councillors and staff for this program. I think it would be important for them to have.
Okay, I'd refer to CAO Walker on that subject.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure how I just became the host. Anyways, yes, full training is available and is going to be arranged. I have done the same training myself through the AODA. So any indications from any counselors that want to uptake the training, will certainly arrange for that, as well as for the staff. And this is a compliance issue with our actual facility where we're going to be hosting the elections, and that we have to follow the guidelines under the AODA, which we are fully compliant with.
Okay, I'm gonna hold off calling the bylaw vote there in a moment, just for the recording clerk to return to the meeting. It appears she's vanished into the cyberspace for a moment. Yes, Councillor Corbett.
While we wait, I'll ask if the AODA training, is it the online modules that the municipality offers? Perfect. I've done it. I'll never reject additional training in AODA if there is, but I've probably already completed that, so.
Through your worship, that is correct. It is online at this time. We'll probably see a return to in-house training, maybe even come around the time of election for various other matters in terms of what is required for conducting the election. However, this training is online.
Okay. Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
While we're waiting for the recording clerk to come back on, maybe we can go, we can find out about other training that's available that we've taken already, like the harassment. There was a bunch of training, and I was wondering if that was included also, CAO Walker.
Through you, Your Worship. There is a number of training components that are offered through the ministry, Municipal Ministry of Affairs and Housing, through the other ministries that are available for council. And certainly a training package is being put together and is going to be set up for the incoming council after the election is completed. And so we will make sure that as any members of council that require any training, just please indicate to me what you might wish to have, and we'll certainly arrange it for you.
May I suggest that staff prepare an orientation package of trainings for the new council?
And through Your Worship, that's exactly what I am preparing. And so thank you for your comment on that, Councillor Gassi.
We welcome back recording clerk Gagne, and Councillor Vinecourt had a question, I think, as well in that last subject. Did I see you trying to?
I thought CEO Walker addressed it.
Okay, good. So I'll call the vote on, we're still working on Bylaw 2022-14, the accessibility plan for the benefit of our clerk. We waited on your return. So motion moved by Councillor Vinecourt, seconded by Councillor Lagasse, that a bylaw to adopt a municipal election accessibility plan policy be read a first, second, and third time, passed to number 2022-14, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any further questions? All in favor? Carried. 8.5, first, second, and third reading, a bylaw to adopt, oh, that's where it was. 8.6, first, second, and third reading, 2022-15, delegation of authority during a lame duck period. Lame duck is the term they use at council that either has members retiring and no longer would facilitate having quorum at some point during the election nomination and outcome period, or there's a number of other situations that cause the council to be in a lame duck position where they wouldn't have appropriate decision-making authority. So it's been practiced now for quite some time under the new Municipal Act to appoint, usually it's the CAO or back in the day, the clerk treasurer of the corporation, to be appointed for those circumstances where real estate transactions or significant personnel changes would happen in the interim of the council having ability to make those decisions. So I take a mover and a seconder in that regard to table the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Corbett, seconded by Councillor Lagasse, that a bylaw to authorize the delegation of authority to the chief administrative officer for certain acts during a lame duck period be read a first, second, and third time, passed in number 2022-15, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this? All in favor? Carried. 8.7, a first, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-16, bylaw to establish an advance vote date. I would take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Corbett, seconded by Councillor Vinecore. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to establish dates and times for an advance vote be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-16, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried. (8.8) First, second, and third reading, bylaw 2022-17, bylaw to authorize the execution of a financing agreement with Ontario Infrastructure and Lands. Councillor Corbett has been placed in the waiting room based on his disclosure earlier this evening. I take a mover and a seconder for this bylaw. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinecore. Whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to authorize the execution of a financing agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Bondfield and Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for the purposes of a guarantee and postponement of claims agreement in partnership with the partner municipalities to the Castle Home Long-Term Care Facility be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2022-17, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Any questions on this one? Yes, Councillor Lagasse.
I see by the last page that there's a percentage for each municipality, and there's 2, 4, 6, 9 municipalities from North Bay to Matawan. How did they come by the percentage? I don't understand it. I know it's written in there, but I just don't quite understand it.
As it was told to me, Moses, when he was still in office, issued a decree that the members of Castle Home shall pay this amount. It's based upon a formula that was in place, I believe, at the founding of Castle Home. And it has a variety of factors related to, I think, how it was achieved is how it was explained to me. But historically, for as long as I can remember, those percentage ratios are what our annual operational levy is calculated using. And nobody, there's a number of municipalities on the list who argue that they don't want to be a member at all, irregardless of the percentage. But it's generally been well accepted that those percentages reflect accurately the population and weighted assessment and so on of all the municipalities that hold ownership in the Castle Home entity.
All right,
That-
my
Yep,
second
go ahead.
question is, are all the municipalities in favor of this? Now, this has been, this committee has had a lot of meetings, in-camera meetings, where the rest of the municipalities haven't been aware of what's going on. Now we're presented with this, and we were not kept in the loop throughout the whole thing. And all of a sudden, I see this on my table, and I'm supposed to do a vote on this. So like I'm supposed to accept this, and I don't understand it. And this is quite a lot of money to be, just for one night. I got this, and to learn about this in one night. I don't think it's fair, in my opinion, and I would like to know how the other municipalities think about this. I'm not ready to vote on this. I'm not ready tonight. I don't have enough information.
Okay. Well, certainly I've spoken at length, numerous occasions related to the Castle Home conversation now, probably for a decade. And the numbers you see there, the 3.7%, 3.07% represents our ownership stake in Castle Home. The financial amount you see there, 1.7 million, almost 1.8 million, represents our share of the reconstruction cost of the total of 57 million. The 57 million being only half of the reconstruction cost of Castle Home. The other half is generally half, we'll call it. It's about, I think, 48% funded by the province of Ontario. That in itself has been a long dialogue, in that Castle Home is not a provincial long-term care home. It's owned by the municipalities on this list, but the province recognizes, like any long-term care home, they've mandated rules that these buildings need renewal. There's classifications of renewal that occur, and Castle Home is long overdue in its being brought up to its proper standard related to modern day. You're right. I've done my best to illustrate at every council meeting where the occasion arose. First of all, the conversation that was happening in the background among the member municipalities. You will recall that 4 on that list, being east of us, want no remaining ownership stake in Castle Home. South Algonquin, which is also a substantial financial contributor, is actually, just as the name suggests, south of Algonquin Park, and Mayor Dumas from there has at numerous occasions stated that, to the best of their knowledge, they've never had a resident in Castle Home. But at the time the geographical list was made up of who contributes to which long-term care home, they were thrown into our basket as designated place where their funds should go. So along the way, there's been quite a number of municipalities voice concern and reservation related to the money that's at play here. And while I've done my best to describe where we are, we do have representation on that board. And unfortunately, it's not direct representation, in that there's I believe in our case, it's 3 municipalities that on a rotational basis share a direct representative on the board of Castle Home. And for the longest time, right next door to us in East Ferris, it was their turn this term of council. It's a 4-year rotation. So we'll say, because we're in the 4th year of the term now, we'll say 4+ years ago, it was Mayor Jobin of Chisholm who started out to be the representative there, and then he for health reasons had to remove himself from that, and it was another member appointed by Chisholm who finished out the term by the name of Walter Ross. He was a councillor there. And then for the past almost full 3 years, Councillor Terry Kelly of East Ferris Township next door was our member representative on the Castle Home board. And while they're not generously compensated to be members of the Castle Home board, they are very intricate to the details of what's happening on a regular basis, particularly with this construction project. And at no such time did Councillor Kelly ever attend our council meetings when they were in person or virtually to brief us on the matter.
You're right, because I remember giving him, signing off on a letter of support to have him go on to that committee. But then we don't get representation. We don't have anything from him, or we don't have a presentation from Castle Home, from the committee of Castle Home, which I would expect for, almost $58 million.
But at the same time, Councillor Kelly resigned when the situation was getting tense with the reconstruction project related to the municipalities, and the fact that there was a great conversation last fall. Generally, the municipalities didn't want to proceed. Castleholm as a board made the decision they were proceeding, and the province was appealed to by both entities, and Castleholm board prevailed because they had their ducks in a row, had done everything appropriately, and there was a last minute proposal that's still part of this conversation that member municipalities will sign off and relinquish their ownership stake in turn for the city of North Bay assuming full burden and ownership of the Castleholm entity. One of the key conditions being that it be a new redeveloped long-term care home when city of North Bay takes possession of it. There's provincial legislation changes that have to happen for that to occur. And all of that, as CEO Lowry and the board itself have articulated, can happen parallel and at another time to this reconstruction project. The reconstruction project, the tender has been opened and awarded, and it's needing to move on. And what you're seeing tonight is all of the member municipalities basically accepting that and agreeing to go to Infrastructure Ontario and borrow the money over, I believe it's a 30-year term, to move on with this rather than rehash it to death anymore. But what could well come of it, as the part 2 of the subject, is that the city of North Bay will become the ultimate owner of the facility. And as it's portrayed to us right now, with the operating efficiencies of the new building and other such things, the member municipalities such as us will no longer have an annual operating levy. If and when those financial scenarios turn out to be accurate, if they turn out to be accurate, the mortgage cost that we would be asked to bear right now would be very much similar to the current operating levy that we're paying. So this, if it all works out according to the proposed plan, could turn out to be a virtually net zero change. We would still have for the next 25 to 30 years an annual amount that we pay, but we'd no longer be an owner, and it wouldn't be an operating levy. It would instead be just the mortgage. When the mortgage is finished and discharged, when we're all in our 80s, this municipality would no longer have that financial burden. So I don't know if I've maybe explained it to death, but that's where it sits presently.
So all of these municipalities agree to this?
I wouldn't say that. Some of them have addressed this subject already. Some of them will have it on their table tonight, and others maybe not so. But I think everybody's come to the general reluctant conclusion that financing this through Infrastructure Ontario and building this is very necessary at this point in time to move on.
Through your worship, if I can just answer
Yes,
one
please.
part of Councillor Gassie's question. What is required here is in order for this to go forward through the Infrastructure Ontario plan that we have in front of us, it requires all members, all municipal members to agree to this. Any one municipality decides not to agree to this, the whole deal goes down, and then each municipality will then be levied their debt, and that puts us in a more difficult situation than guaranteeing our apportionment now at the 3.07%. It is encouraged that we all give this the consideration based on that information. It is my understanding that through the other CAOs, clerks, treasurers that I've spoken to within the representing municipalities here, that they plan to all pass this. A fair number of them already have. I have not heard of any one municipality declining. But if, as I said, if one municipality declines this, the whole deal falls apart. And then Castleholm could and most likely will levy us, each member, their full proportionate, which is detrimental to our ability to do a fair number of other things that are relevant to our municipality. So I give that information so that you can weigh that as you're considering the viability of this offer that's in front of us.
Thank you for reminding me of that, because the choice is between financing it through Infrastructure Ontario at, I believe it's last I heard, and it changes every day, and we're in different world circumstances right now, but it was about 1.7% the interest rate on the mortgage. So you can't borrow money any cheaper than that. But as the CAO alluded to, either you're going to get this bill for 1.8 million in 4 installments, a couple of which were owed already and just haven't been issued yet, or you get to finance it over 30 years. That's your choice anymore. You don't have a choice, yes or no. So I hate to put it that way, but that's how it is. And because I mentioned names earlier, based on our representation on the Castleholm board, I called Councillor Kelly of East Ferris into the mix here. Our new representative is Mayor Gail de Gagne of Chisholm. East Ferris, when Councillor Kelly resigned prior to Christmas, had no one from their council willing to serve on the board, so they chose to appoint Mayor de Gagne of Chisholm, and she has not virtually attended our meetings either to brief us on the subject. So just wanted to not hang all the burden on Councillor Kelly. There's a new representative that is our representative on the board there, Mayor de Gagne next door. Any other questions on this one at all? Okay, I'll read the bylaw then. Moved by Councillor Foisey, seconded by Councillor Vinecore, that whereas council deems it necessary and expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to authorize the execution of a financing agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Bonfield and Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation for the purposes of a guarantee and postponement of claims agreement in partnership with the partner municipalities to the Castleholm Long-Term Care Facility. We read a first, second, and third time passed in number 2022-17, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. Last call for questions on this one. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Disbursements. We'll wait for Councillor Corbett to return. Okay, see his return. I'll take a mover and a seconder to table the disbursements, and then I would entertain any questions prior to reading the motion. Moved by Councillor Lagasse, seconded by Councillor Vinecore. Are there any questions related to the disbursement list for this meeting? Yes, Councillor Vinecore.
Just a couple for Public Works Manager Carr on some page 2 of 4. Some pin seals and bushing kits and hydraulic pistons. Is that for the truck or?
It's for our 2015 backhoe. It's kings and pins for the front.
Okay.
And it's leaking out of the piston for the boom. So we have to buy a new inner piston kit.
Okay, thanks, Ann.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on the disbursements? Okay, I'll read the motion and motion moved by Councillor Legacy, seconded by Councillor Viancore, that the following disbursements be approved as prepared. All departments under APO 5976 for subtotal of $140,127.58 and payroll batches 1195 through 1199 amounting to $27,326.84, resulting in a total disbursement of $167,454.42. Last call for questions. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Correspondence and information. City of Sarnia and City of Thorold, motion of support to dissolve the Ontario Land Tribune. We had these, there was other ones, I believe, on the last meeting. I don't know if we supported them, or did we leave this that we were going to do motions of support tonight? I'm not of the opinion to dissolve the Ontario Land Tribunal, but if that was the collective decision last time, I fail to recall. Is that why they're here, Clerk Gagne?
I would ask CAO Walker to speak on this. He was the one who wanted to make sure it was brought to council's attention.
Okay, go ahead.
Through your worship, thank you for the opportunity to address this. We are looking to just express support or not to express support with this. There is not just these represented motions that have been passed, but there's a fair number of municipalities that are finding it a rather challenging whereby a municipality has done a lot of work on their own to bring a planning matter forward through their planning department, through their various advisory committees, or other portions through council, and those are all accepted and moving forward. And then for some reason, the governing body has challenges with it and has caused some significant delays or issues. Although not all municipalities were excited about the previous governing body, they are having a hope that we can look at a better way of ensuring that these planning decisions that are held on a local level remains within the ability of the local level to make sure that these things are done for themselves. There's some disproportionment going on in terms of different parts of the province, different structures or types of cities, towns, townships, and it's causing a lot of confusion. And so a fair number of municipalities are supporting these motions. And so we passed by it in the last meeting. We set it aside, bringing it back forward to see if council had enough time in their sober second thought 2 weeks later to re-entertain this item.
Okay. Any thoughts on it? Okay, hearing none, I'll shelve the two of them, if that's all right. Moving then to item 2, the 2022 OGRA conference. Like all conferences, OGRA has struggled to hold an actual in-person conference, much like Roma and Phenom and all of the others that we generally, AMO, that we generally participate in. And when Omicron decided to hit the fan back in December, OGRA had the confidence to postpone their conference to the second week of April. And I congratulated them on that because I'm aching for a conference myself. And as their forecast crystal ball showed them, it turned out to be right in that a number of provincial restrictions and so forth to large event gatherings have, for the time being at least, we've seen this before, moved in their favor of holding an actual in-person conference. So on that basis, it's on the agenda tonight for any members of council who would like to step forward and attend that conference this year. Back when they were in the dialogue of filling out the membership and seeing if there was any appetite even for an in-person conference, I had registered back then to demonstrate to them that yes, they had assured that any registration fees would be fully refunded if in fact the conference was unable to take part. So I'm registered already since about September of last year, but it's open for other parties, and certainly as our statement of remuneration and travel expenses showed now on our website, but last meeting in your package, our budget for travel is certainly all there yet because nobody's went anywhere for the most part or did anything for 2 years now. So here's your chance in this term of council to potentially attend a conference. Yes, Councillor Vinecourt.
Yeah, I would like to attend this year.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councillor Corbett.
I'd also be interested, Your Worship.
Okay. I see Manager Carr. And Councillor Legacy, your hand's up. Is that a question or?
Yes, I do have a question. When's the deadline to let you know?
Well, that's the thing. You have another meeting, I think, yet to decide based on the early bird rate. But the motion, just as in the past, is passed to cover us for insurance purposes and so forth when we're on the road. We could name you. We could name you in the motion, and if you indicate not to bother registering you, well, then at least you're covered on paper. Is that acceptable? Okay. And CAO Walker, yes?
I do intend on going to the conference as well.
Okay. So I will call for a mover and a seconder for a motion then. Moved by Councillor Corbett, seconded by Councillor Vinecourt. I'll read the motion and then we can discuss it if necessary. That R. McLaren, M. Vinecourt, A. Carr, J. Legacy, and CAO Walker be approved to attend the 2022 OGRA conference, April 10th to 13th, 2022, and that expenses be paid accordingly. Any questions on this one? All in favor? Carried.
Sorry, Your Worship, my camera cut out. I was listed in there, correct?
Oh, yes, sorry. Okay, I can reread the motion if necessary, but I'll just ask the recording clerk to add Councillor Corbett, if you wouldn't mind. My pen didn't keep up to me. All right. Information, motion to support NOMA to address urgent need of physicians. That is certainly something that throughout Northern Ontario is a concern. Motion to support Bracebridge joint and severable reform. Conferences, again, every conference I've ever attended, the subject of insurance liability and the reform of it for slip and fall particularly is something that comes up every conversation when you put mayors together in a room. East Ferris Township, the North Bay French River Algonquins, that matter, well, I was sent the link of the East Ferris Township Council meeting and their discussion thereof. This entity of North Bay French River Algonquins, that's not a formally recognized entity yet. So I don't think we need to do a motion of support until we get some clarity on that, unless I hear otherwise. And item 4, item for discussion submitted by Councillor Foisey, his resignation from St. Bernadette Parish Finance Committee. Yes, Councillor Foisey.
Yes, I have some things to say about that. At our regular meeting, February 22nd, time frame starting at 52:14. Mayor McLaren, later in a council meeting, you had stated to council that you no longer held such a pecuniary interest because you had resigned from the finance committee of the parish, which when I saw this on the agenda last Friday caused me to wonder to myself how you came to know then that the parish was withdrawing the application in time for you to prepare the notice of motion for reimbursement that's on the agenda. So you can't have it both ways. Either you're on the financial committee or you're not. And it does leave a bit of point to wonder which side of the fence you're on in this regard. Councillor Foisey, I go to church and we talk. Mayor McLaren, you talk. Okay. Very good then. Glad you do. You now have a copy of my resignation from the St. Bernadette Finance Committee dated and signed on October 22nd, 2021. An English version of the resignation and acceptance of it is included for your convenience. My response to your insinuation. Here's the side of the fence that I am on concerning this or any other matter. The people of Bonfield are counting on us as their elected officials to stand up for them, the taxpayers. And that's exactly what I have done. In fact, in my discussion with the priest, I suggested that he request that the severance fees be refunded, especially considering your desecrating speech you did against St. Bernadette Parish. The St. Margaret's Anglican and Mount Pleasant United Churches, side by side with St. Bernadette Parish, work hard to shape the moral well-being of people regardless of their institutions' turbulent histories. They are also very involved with the basic needs of the residents of this township with affiliations to charitable organizations. You attack one church, you attack them all. I can't wait for the annual 3 churches fundraising spaghetti supper held at the Bonfield Community Hall to get back on track again. It is really gratifying to work side by side with people who care about the well-being of others, no matter their backgrounds or their beliefs.
Okay. Next item for discussion, Councillor Foisey, anti-vaccine freedom convoy.
It has been brought to my attention that a councillor has participated in the freedom convoy. This councillor posted the roadside participation on social media. This so-called peaceful anti-vaccine mandate demonstration on Parliament Hill became an occupation, became an attempt to overthrow the Liberal government with police reports of violence and other unlawful activities, as reported by Lisa Laflamme, Christian Ashkute, and Ottawa Division report on the CTV National News for Friday, February 4th, 2022, and for Saturday, February 5th, 2022. These news reports went on to specify that those living nearby the downtown protest area likened the people partying, dancing in the streets with loudspeakers and horns, blaring into the night like psychological torture. Truckers responded with free earplugs. Now, organizers of the convoy are facing a $9.8 million lawsuit over excessive noise. Now, to be fair to this councillor and to many other people, the outcome of the anti-vaccine mandate demonstration may not have been known. However, a report in the North Bay Nugget prior to this anti-vaccine mandate protest on November 30th, 2021, revealed that the local anti-vaxxer protesters, which were being supporters of the anti-vaccine convoy, having prepared a staging refueling area in North Bay, were known to verbally harass mothers, parents, and guardians by calling them murderers and were allowing poison to be injected into their sons and daughters and swearing at them, making parents and children even more nervous about the situation. This was reported in the November 30th, 2021 issue of the North Bay Nugget. North Bay mother called murderer outside COVID-19 youth clinic. Nipissing MPP Vic Fideli responded in that news article by stating, "It is already a criminal offense to threaten and intimidate people." In my opinion, this councillor made a very poor judgment call in participating in the roadside rally. This councillor has been a strong supporter of the state of emergency in the township of Bonfield, which stresses the need to be vaccinated, to wear masks in a public setting, and reminds us of social distancing. Our state of emergency should abide by all the provincial and federal COVID-19 mandates. I don't know what truly motivated this councillor to join the protest, and maybe we should not inquire into it. The mandate of any members of a municipal government should be to support and enforce the rules of law under the umbrella of upper levels of government, whether provincial or federal, to ensure the justice and safety of our residents. Although we all have our views on different political related subjects, we should have a high level of conscientiousness and do a research on the topics before actively partaking in controversial and counterproductive measures. I strongly believe that no member of council should have participated in this anti-government protest to destabilize the federal and provincial governments and indirectly our own municipal government under a state of emergency due to COVID-19. But all things being equal, an inquiry and investigation should occur. An inquiry and other integrity commissioner inquiry would certainly occur if that councillor was me. Or are you, Mayor McLaren, going to interrogate each one of us to publicly divulge the identity of that councillor protesting in our municipal state of emergency? Just a reminder that you stripped away former Deputy Mayor Baudouin's position essentially for protesting against our municipal state of emergency. Are you going to punish someone else for protesting our municipal state of emergency, for demonstrating, for their freedom of expression? However, I pray that this sort of inquiry will not happen again and again and again. That this incident just be attributed to a case of very poor judgment. After all, in the February 23rd, 2022, CTV News report, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau stated, "People are allowed their freedom of expression." Other government officials have qualified this freedom of expression with the following: "If this right of freedom of expression does not impede on the rights of others." And let's leave it at a case of very poor judgment.
Are you finished, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was wondering when you had those two items on the agenda, your item for discussion line items have become your podium for creating discourse in the council and making inflammatory remarks. So kudos to you for lodging two more lobs into the fire. But what I'll go back to remind you is that in your first tirade about the desecration of the churches, nobody desecrated them any more than you when you got everybody's snow plowing canceled about 2 years ago. And while you've advocated strongly for the emergency center to have their snow plowing done, you haven't done much work to find solution for the other parishes that you brought into the conversation with your spaghetti supper mention. But that's a matter for another day and for them to hold you accountable at election time. On the subject of the Freedom Convoy, whether or not a member of council chose to participate in that is outside of my domain to comment on one way or the other. But you did bring into the conversation the state of emergency and the fact that you're now championing the fact that there's a local state of emergency, when in fact, sir, you about a year and a half ago were one of the 2 votes out of 5 that would have canceled the local state of emergency. So I would say that's the height of hypocrisy, where you're now championing the local state of emergency when recklessly a year and a half or thereabouts, you were one of the votes that would have canceled it. And then you further disparaged former Councillor Baudouin by bringing her name up again in the subject matter when that file is closed, by suggesting that her departure is somehow related to the state of emergency and some form of reprisal for it. The reason Councillor Baudouin left council is her own thinking and her own decision. The reason she was removed as the deputy mayor at that point in time was, if you, again, and you're apparently pretty good at watching these videos and marking down the dialogue, if you go back and look, it was clearly stated by her that she was fully intent on committing an illegal act the next morning, and that is circumventing and bypassing the head of council and faxing in a fully filled out document to Emergency Measures Ontario, which she had no authority whatsoever to do. So you can draw parallels to whatever you like, but every time you do, you're factually incorrect. So that's all I would say to that this evening. Okay. Township of Alnwick, proclamation of the Year of the Garden. Is that something that council would be entertaining for next meeting? Hearing none. Okay, Blake Tripkovic, letter in support of short-term rentals. Our presentation earlier this evening, Amy Cullimore and Robin Edwards, a follow-up email related to short-term rentals. And as I alluded to earlier, Phenom, Northern Ontario Transportation Task Force. They're working on some light items there. Any questions or comment on any of those? Okay, moving then, unfinished business. Item for discussion, Councillor Foisey, Ombudsman report, removal of deputy mayor. Yes, Councillor Foisey. I'm sorry, you're muted, sir.
Just to reset the discussion on the removal of the deputy mayor position, the Ombudsman report, page 2, states, on December 5th, 2018, the head of council for the township provided consent and council voted to appoint a deputy mayor. The act does not specify that the head of council can unilaterally remove a deputy mayor once appointed by council, or continued consent of the head is required. The township's procedural bylaw does not currently indicate a process for removal from this position. As my staff discussed with the mayor and CEO clerk, since the original decision to appoint an individual to the position of deputy mayor was made by a vote of council, the decision to remove an individual from this position should have also been made collectively by council. In the absence of express authority, an individual member of council does not have the authority to unilaterally reverse a council decision. Regular council meeting, February 22nd, 2022. Time frame 1:31:07. Mayor McLaren. And currently our procedural bylaw has no language or mention of how a deputy mayor is removed. It only speaks to the fact of how one is selected and appointed. And as I described to the Ombudsman's office in the length of the dialogue that we had on this subject matter, it's been a glaring oversight in our municipality's part as well about a tremendous disrespect shown to the heads of council under that section of the Municipal Act, which is an answer to your question I believe, is section 283, but I'll confirm that from the next meeting. Time frame 151:43. Mayor McLaren, you are saying that I should have given them the benefit of the doubt and just expelled them from the meeting. I should have expelled them from the municipality. And that's what ultimately happened anyway, under her own accord. So it's for the best for everyone. My response to this statement is, in addition to the section of the Municipal Act that you claim allows the head of council to remove the deputy mayor, that you promised that you would provide to us at this meeting, can you also provide the section of the Municipal Act that allows the head of council to expel the resident, a councillor, or anybody for that matter, from the municipality? But I'll give you the benefit of the doubt if you could come up with a section of the Municipal Act, the procedural bylaw, or any provincial or federal laws that enables you, the head of council, to do that. Let's not forget that you severely punished former Deputy Mayor Baudouin just based on an intent to do something. Would the removal of the Deputy Mayor position be overstepping your authority? And would the intent of removal of a residence from the municipality also be overstepping your authority? You unilaterally removed the position of the Deputy Mayor solely based on an intent to do something you did not agree with. It is ironic that, according to the Ombudsman's report, Mayor McLaren overstepped his authority by unilaterally removing the Deputy Mayor position because he claimed that former Deputy Mayor Baudouin intended to overstep her authority in that role.
Point of order, Your Worship.
I'll listen to it, yes.
Just wondering, so this is falling under unfinished business. As I recall the last council meeting, I'm trying to figure out what was from the last council meeting. We heard the statements and we moved on. So I don't understand how it's appearing in the agenda under unfinished business.
Just as a point of clarity on the, I was surprised too when it remained on the agenda, but as Councillor Foisey alluded to, the only remaining matter of unfinished business is I had assured that I would point out which section of the Municipal Act I operated under related to that, and I'm prepared to do so tonight. So that's the only question outstanding. So the point of order I'll disregard on that basis. We're not going to get into lengthy dialogue on this evening after hashing it out quite thoroughly last meeting. But the question remained what section of the Municipal Act I was referring to, and I do have that information available tonight if that suits you. Prior to that, Councillor Foisey, you had another brief comment to make? No? Okay. Okay. Based upon your comments there and the point of order suggestion, section 226 of the Municipal Act is the section I relied on regarding the head of the consent of the head of council being required to have an alternate in their place. And it reads, a municipality may, with the may, and we know in the Municipal Act, every time may is used as opposed to shall, it's optional. So that tells me you may or may not have a deputy mayor or designated alternate in your municipality. The municipality may, with the consent of the head of council, appoint a member to act in place thereof, and it goes on with further language. So that's, in fact, the absolute section that I used in that regard. And again, based upon your statements and assertions further this evening, 2 points. First one, the removal of the deputy mayor, it wasn't based on a presumption, an assumption, or a intent. It was stated for the record by the member of council at that point in time. It's clearly available on the video that it wasn't an intent. It was stated for the record, and I in fact questioned her on it. Do you intend to send this document in the morning? And she stated to the affirmative. So there's no doubt that it was a full intent to break the law. But as I had alluded to last meeting, There was many other prior occasions that I had let pass by that seemed inappropriate, but I let them go to keep, peace in the valley kind of thing here. But when it was stated to me for the record in a videotape meeting that the law was intended to be broken, that was the moment in time where I decided that this could no longer stand. Further to that, your commentary based upon my comments that I made last meeting, you're absolutely correct for once this evening in that there is no provision in the Municipal Act or any other act for me to expel a person from the municipality. That was a turn of phrase that I used, but certainly if mayors or premiers or prime ministers had the ability to expel members out of their domains, certainly it would be used on certain occasions, because I could probably draft you up a list if I had that authority, but I'm concurring with your research. There is no such authority under the Municipal Act, and therefore I'm unable to expel any member from the municipality. Does that satisfy your concerns? Okay, very good. Moving then to confirmatory bylaw. I would take a mover and a seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Corbett, seconded by Councillor Viancore. Whereas council deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council from February 22nd, 2022 to March 8th, 2022 be read a first, second, and third time, passed in number 2022-8, and that the said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. All in favor? Carried. Councillor Clerk Gagne, you're also in favor, or do you have a question?
I just wanted to correct that. It should read 2022-11, not 08.
Okay, thank you. The record will show that. There's no addendum. I would take a motion to adjourn. Motion moved by Councillor Viancore, seconded by Councillor Lagasse, that this meeting be adjourned at 8:38 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Ann. Have a good night.
Good night, all.